Well, hello. Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise here, and last time I pondered an intriguing question that was posed to me by viewer Jason Bowles. Is pinball a board game? Now, as I turned this question over and over in my head, every time I came up with a rule proving why pinball was or was not a board game, it also came with an example of a specific board game that contradicted that rule. So, stuck, I asked you, the audience, for your opinion on the matter. And you didn't disappoint. There were too many responses to be able to cover them all individually here. So here's the most common arguments made for and against pinball being a board game. Those who voted that pinball is not a board game cited things like the lack of portability, the overwhelming dexterity element, that once assembled, you do not take it apart for storage, and the presence of the layer of abstraction between the player and the components. For example, one viewer suggested, sure, take the flippers off, take the glass off, make people flick the ball for points with their fingers, and after doing that, then we would have a board game. Fair enough, but speaking from personal experience, after doing that, we also wouldn't be allowed back at the Chuck E. Cheese. Other opposing arguments raised more questions with me than they actually answered. Such as Iman's argument that pinball cabinets are not board games because, quote, tabletop games do not require specialized furniture to play, hence why they are called tabletop. But tabletop is a piece of furniture that's required for tabletop. It's in the name! Tabletop games! Still, yes, I know what you mean, and I get your point, so yeah, that's fair. But tabletop? Jordan proclaimed, I would not call it a board game. I would call it a tabletop dexterity game with a dedicated table integrated into the game. I'm sorry, was that referring to pinball or to the board game Tumblin' Dice? Because the description could be equally applied to both. Noonikurt pointed out that, quote, if you consider all dexterity games to be board games, then many sports could be board games as well. You play them on a flat surface, a court or a field, by manipulating an object, the ball, to score points. Yes, but by that criteria, is downhill skiing a sport? Is downhill skiing a board game? Noonikurt added, since pinball machines are not tabletop games, you don't put them on a table, they cannot be board games. And that is an airtight argument, as long as the 112,000 Google search results for pinball games specifically designed to be played on a traditional tabletop are also ignored. Kenny suggested, to me, a better example than pinball to argue the categorization would be electric football. We should start with that one. Oh, no, we shouldn't. The pinball discussion alone is already just pulverizing what's left in my brain. So no, let's just put football aside and just stick to the pinball. However, the campaign against pinball being a board game was not universal. A little less than 1% of the respondents did consider pinball to legitimately be a board game, with that side's most common argument being, sure. So where do I stand on the issue? With the vocal majority or the small but present minority? Well, Jason, my not even close to expert opinion is that pinball is not a board game. But my reason is specifically because pinball has evolved into being its own unique category of gaming, like air hockey or darts or high-stakes spelling bee wagers. It has become its own thing. And if pinball was at one time a board game, it has since rebelled. It's a wild child of the gaming genre that cannot, will not be tamed. So, I hope this answers your question, Jason. And if any other viewers have any questions that can be addressed in a future segment, let me know. And until then, I'll see you in the comments. Regardless of whether or not pinball is a board game, I think ISO Haven put it best with their statement of, if a single dictionary source can redefine a single die as dice simply because they couldn't possibly care any less for the English language, then it's clear that words have no meaning and they mean whatever the heck random people want them to mean. So basically, board game means whatever you want it to mean. It could be a poster on a flagpole for all it matters. I think that this has broken words for me. After reading that, I can't even crankshaft lobster robot face chandelier. Oh, I blame you, ISO. Ah, my body.